Hi.
How are you?
Good, good. Hey, how's it going?
But when I said rush, she said, the first time they asked me what it was, I said, it was. Oh, apparently.
That I didn't know.
Yes, indeed. That's how I got that. I said, that was, I don't know what hasn't.
And you won't after tonight.
And I won't call you back again. Take care.
Jim does the meetings, maybe it'll be on that. I wrote it. He said to them, Rick is yes.
So. 7:30. And hi, everyone. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Riverwoods. Would you please stand with me and say the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Trustee Clayton?
Here.
Trustee Dickin? Here. Trustee Eastman?
Here.
Trustee Hollander?
Here.
Trustee Jamerson is absent. Trustee Smith?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. First order of business is approval of the minutes of the Board of Trustees meeting for April 2nd. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions, suggestions, edits? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All
Abstain.
opposed? Abstain? Yes, sir. Trustee Clayton abstains, not present. Next order of business is the Finance Director's report. We'll start with the approval of bills. May I have a motion for the approval of bills, please?
So moved.
Second.
Are there any questions? Roll call, please.
Trustee Clayton?
Aye.
Trustee Dickin?
Aye.
Trustee Eastman?
Aye.
Trustee Hollander?
Aye.
Trustee Smith?
Aye.
Motion carries.
In the absence of our director, our finance director, our finance trustee will present the quarterly report, please. Trustee Clayton.
As long as we make it totally clear that this is all Director Vasquez's work and I'm simply relaying what he had to put together. If you're looking at the financial statements, what we're going to focus on is the year-to-date activity, which is the two columns to the right, except for the budget column. These are unaudited financials. Looking first at revenues. Revenues are in line with what we have expected, except for the police revenues. However, because the seasonality of police revenues revolves around the receipt of the police tax, this is a normal distribution for us. Last year at this time, we had a 4% revenue through the first quarter. So at this point, the difference between the 4% and the 7% this year is the special use fees and the sale of a retired vehicle that happened in early 2025. Looking at the administrative and building department revenues, they're trending ahead of the 25% mark a quarter of the way through the year and slightly ahead of where they were in the first quarter of 2024. The general fund also received a $250,000 CD that matured from Advia, formerly Northside Bank. The staff is working with the village treasurer to get the proceeds reinvested with the rest of the village's investments. And we should see more activity for the building department as we get to the warmer months. Although I think Trustee Jamerson said at the meeting or the meeting before that, we're still running a little bit behind in terms of where we had been last year. Expenses in the general fund are overall, if you look at the right-hand column, the percent of budget used, you can see they're all below the 25% that we would expect at the end of the first quarter. The general fund right now is operating at a surplus at the end of the first quarter, an amount of $217,824, which is the line that's noted as operating net income revenue on the financial statements. As far as the MFT fund is concerned, MFT revenues are trending right on target at 25.8% through the first quarter, and we haven't expended any money. However, we obviously are saving that money for the anticipated work for the Saunders Road project. As far as the water fund is concerned, revenues are just under 16% of the annual budget amount. The warmer months usually bring more water usage, so that number should look closer to target at the next quarter. We are trending where we were at this time last year. Expenditures are at the low point in the year, but are almost exactly the same from where we were at the end of the first quarter in 2024. Much of the budget for water expenses is related to capital projects that will happen later in the year, as well as the cost of the water we purchase. As far as the sewer fund is concerned, revenues are right on track at 25% of the budgeted amount. Again, expenditures are at a low point at this juncture, but much of the work is related to capital projects, which will be happening later in the year. The capital fund itself is, the revenue for the capital fund is based on a transfer from the general fund, which the board approved last year, as well as grant revenue. And so it's down this year because neither of which have happened at this point in 2025. And there's been very limited expenditures from the capital fund at this point in time. Most of the budgeted expenses for the 2025 capital budget are related to the Saunders Road project, which is not started. As far as the cash report is concerned, which is the next financial statement in your packet, as you can see from the total amounts, cash is stable. And the main transfer of funds among the various elements is between the general fund and the capital fund, which reflects the transfer that we had just talked about. And we also budgeted to port $150,000 from TIF 1 to TIF 2, which was booked as part of the audit process. Any questions?
Are there any questions for a trustee?
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is Treasurer's Report. Hal isn't with us this evening. Director of Community Services Report. Director Witt, please.
Thank you, Mayor. A few things if my voice can hold out tonight. Saunders Road, no real update. We're waiting on finalization of the site acquisition amounts. Those need to be finalized before IDOT will schedule the letting, which is still on target for June. Federal Life site building is now down, which I think is very evident. It's very wide open as you pass that site. It's a sad thing in some ways to see that building gone at this point. Work does continue on foundation removal, and it'll take probably another 2 weeks at least. Our open burning program, grace period expires today in a few hours, actually. And I'm glad to say we have had no enforcement issues since passing of the ordinance, and we've had nobody coming at us with pitchforks either. 8 residents, I think 4 of them yesterday, have applied for permits to burn. 3 of them have been processed, one which was denied as there's no legal area on the site to allow burning, which is something to be expected for some of our smaller properties. Hazardous trees, the program has started moving forward. Some trees have already been removed. We are currently working with residents that feel that some of the targeted trees are not on their property. This was fully expected as the village forester and her crew were not out in the field with plats of surveys for every project. So to make a determination on where the tree exactly is, could be here, could be there. You cite what you think the property line is, and there's going to be areas where there's going to be some disagreement. So we are collecting all of those and responding to customers as we can. It'll probably be another 2-3 weeks before all of that is settled out. We sent out the native landscaping RFP finally for the police department. Bids are due next Friday. It'll be coming forth to the board soon for approval. The fee schedule is undergoing a total overhaul to make it more informative, user-friendly, as well as adjusting fees to reflect our current costs of doing business from the time of application through final inspections. I just want to note that the building department has been using the correct fee schedule. We did find that there was one form that had an outdated fee, which was increased due to the building inspection consultants increased in hourly rates at the beginning of 2025. That fee was increased as allowed by village ordinance, and to avoid any further confusion, that form was revised to remove the fee amount. Last item on my list, Orphans of the Storm. I met with GHA, Tesca, and the design team yesterday. The project will not be moving forward to the May Plan Commission meeting, as the design team is going to be revising their application packet as well as drawings to better present their case and cover some of the concerns that were presented to them through previous reviews. We firmly believe that this case will be set for the June Plan Commission meeting. That's all I have tonight.
Maybe I missed it, but what project? What project?
Orphans
For
of
the
the Storm.
Orphans of the Storm, what
Orphans of the
project,
Storm.
to what project are you referring?
Their expansion of their facility.
Is that the garage you were talking about, or for the
the hall.
winter?
No, the Orphans of the Storm site is looking to basically tear down their existing facility and expand it about two plus times what they currently have. The full project would be about 24,000 square feet.
Or maybe I missed it, I'm sorry, I didn't know.
I'm sorry.
Are there any other questions for our director? Okay. Were you, pardon me, but were you going to cover the cost share at this point, or we delay discussion on that? I think it was on the posted agenda.
On the cost share program, I thought that we decided we weren't doing that.
That's probably my error in not taking a good look. I know we've got the Sustainability Committee that is bringing their report forward, and in there, the cost share program will be adjusted, and that's probably the best time to bring any kind of changes or revisions. So my bad, sorry. Next, consultants' reports, attorney's report, please.
Everything is on the agenda.
Okay. Plan Commission report, Chairman Breykoff.
Long walk to say I have nothing to report. But I'll take any questions.
Are there any questions for our chair? Okay. Moving on, if you could, zoning board of appeals, please. Chair
Well, I
Grandigan.
made the same long walk to say the same thing.
Okay.
Any questions for us? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Police report, chief.
The police activity is in the board packet. Additionally, we had administrative hearing court this morning, and I reported back in February that there was a dog in town that got out of its yard and attacked another dog, resulting in that dog having to be euthanized. At the hearing today, the owner of the two dogs agreed to the hearing officer declaring the dogs as dangerous per our ordinance. He ended up signing an agreement that the dogs would be declared dangerous and have to follow certain conditions such as being chipped, having to be in an enclosure when outdoors, having to, when the dog is not in the enclosure with the owners, has to be on a leash and on a muzzle, and some kind of behavioral conditioning that the dog has to go through, among some other things, and we'll be monitoring that. The victim was aware of everything that happened and was satisfied with it, with everything, and so that's put to rest for now. That's all I have.
Are there any questions for our chief? Thank you very much. Fire District, Chief Kruger is not with us this evening. Information and comments from the president. I'll be brief. We're planning some orientation meetings for our incoming trustees, and hopefully we'll do a better job than maybe we did with our old new trustees. And so just trying to, yeah, we did no job with you. Okay, we did no job. So anything, low bar. What we're asking them to do is come in and spend some time with our directors and our clerk, to learn a little bit about what goes on here and what our roles are and all of that. So they will set up individual times, what's convenient for them to come in and learn a little bit. So that's, and I will extend that to our sitting trustees, ongoing trustees too, if you'd like to take advantage of that. Next, statement of economic interest due May 1st. I think there are a couple of you that need to do that. It is for the year ended, prior year ended, 2025, so please take care of that. Lastly, we're trying to develop the governance workshop that we talked about. We agreed at the very beginning of the year we would have 4 workshops this year. This would be the second one on governance. The third one is scheduled for sometime in August, and the fourth one is, I think, budget, or maybe finance gets August, and we have those at the end of the year. So we're working on trying to get a good outline there. Governance, talking about what roles the board has, what roles the Plan Commission and CBA and so on and so forth. So a lot of topics and just trying to make it useful. So next, visitors wishing to address the board on items not on the agenda. Jim, Randy, okay. Now, you see, I can call on everybody by name. Catherine, Russ, Les,
Randy Effie. I'm just curious, on the last meeting we were at, and we had the vote on the whether the fire station was voted on, and obviously it was not passed. That was for being passed for if you were going to be able to raise taxes. I'm assuming that's what people were saying. We don't want to do that. So what do you guys intend to do? Are you going to float a bond internally, or what are you doing?
I think that might be a question for the fire district because they own that land now. And I believe it's, if I'm not speaking incorrectly here, it's up to them to finance whatever goes on that land, the building of that, of their new fire station and so on. I don't know what their plans are.
So the city's not involved with that? It's just
No. And the taxes that you would see raised would be the taxes for that fire district that currently appear on your tax bill.
Right, and that's what it was, what did not pass.
I didn't know the final count. The last time I heard, Chief?
I just checked at about 5:40, and that was when it was updated.
Yeah.
And it did not pass by 27 votes.
So, is there any, when's the end date on that? Do you know?
Today.
Today was,
Yeah, at 5 o'clock, and I signed that at 5:40, and they had just updated it.
Holy cow, 27 votes.
But they said that nothing is official until the clerk signs off on it, I think, next week, so.
So what typically happens for something like that? Does the fire department have the wherewithal to float a bond to be able to pay for this, or?
It's a question for them. It's a question for them.
So it's possible it can just sit idle for a while as well then?
It's possible. It's one of the possibilities, yes. If I had further information, again, they own the land. We own the land around it. But I don't know the answer to your question. And I don't know that they know the answer to your question right now either.
So
frankly.
who's funding taking down the building and putting the retention ponds? Who's doing that? Is that part of the Riverwoods and the fire department or no?
It's a shared expense, yes.
And that's where
We're getting our money, yes.
So, but that's where the Riverwoods responsibility would end when that's done.
Yes, sir. That's my understanding.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Russ, Catherine, Les, anyone? Okay. Moving on, new business. First item of new business is, I'm sorry, what?
Is there anyone else who wanted to address the?
I asked Jim originally, yeah. No. Now we call everybody by name. That's Jim. That's Jim Hicks. Okay, new business, discussion of, do you feel on the spot at all? Okay. Discussion of amendment to the Affordable Housing Plan. Will our village attorney please lead us through that?
I'm starting with the memo to the board on page 35 of the packet. The Affordable Housing Act, that's the state of Illinois requirement for villages such as ours, which don't have enough affordable housing units within the village to be exempt. That makes us non-exempt, are required to have a plan on file with the Illinois Housing Development Agency. We first put together a plan in March of 2005. We revised it in June of 2020. Since that time, some amendments to the state law required other components of the plan. And the plan components are mandated by the state law, the minimum requirements of the plan. We're required to file an update that includes these new components by the middle of June. Before we can do that, we need to hold a hearing. So one of the purposes of having this in the packet tonight is to get feedback and comments to see if we can't proceed to schedule a hearing for a May meeting so that we can file this with IDAS by mid-June, which is the deadline. The plan document is a considerable rewrite from the existing documents. Although the plan components, most of them are the same, our responses we updated in each case because circumstances have changed a great deal since 2005. If it would be helpful, if we start on page 37 of the packet, I thought I might just run through our responses. Every time you see response 1, 2, or 3, that's basically the village component of the plan in response to a required statement that the state law says you must have in your plan. So the first statement is a statement of how many units we need to be exempt. In other words, to come off the non-exempt list. The way that IDA calculates that is they look at the number of housing units. Their requirement is that 10% to be off the list, that 10% of the units be affordable. I think the last official finding from IDA was a 2023 study that said we had 1,298 housing units, which would suggest that we need 130 affordable units. But they found that we had 20 affordable units. That's therefore gives us the information we need basically to, I don't want to say parrot back at IDA since they're the ones who gave us the data, but we're basically telling them what their report shows that we need to be non-exempt. The second response is one that we spent more time on updating. It's identifying lands that are most appropriate for constructing affordable units. Now, I think in many larger towns, this is a much more productive undertaking where you look at available parcels that are underutilized, vacant industrial sites, commercial sites. There's all sorts of possibilities for affordable units. Think of the city of Chicago looking at what it can do with office buildings in the Loop. In the case of the village, in 2005, we were fully bounded at that time. and nothing has changed, with the possible exception of the annexation of a couple of parcels, one of which you all know is the landfill parcel on Milwaukee Avenue, which was potentially available in 2005 for annexation and is still potentially available. Other sites that we identified in 2005 are no longer available. One has a police station on it. One are the lots on Kearney Trail, which are very, very high quality wetlands, not really suitable for development. We did update the map that shows village-owned parcels to include the property we just acquired from Federal Life. As you know, of the 7.5 acres the village acquired, probably 5 or 6 will be stormwater management. We don't know exactly what will be left over. I know the Strategic Land Use Committee has been looking at other uses of village properties, but I'm not aware of any current village properties that are suitable for conversion to affordable units. So this response basically focuses on the possibility of a mixed-use development on the Milwaukee parcel and the possibility of a planned development on the office campus properties. There's a much larger discussion in that because we now know a great deal more than we knew years ago. We have a planned development overlay ordinance. In the course of updating this, one of the things that we came across was reports that the Justice Department had dropped its objection to the merger of Capital One and Discover Financial. So we didn't know that even a month ago. So again, the office campus properties probably present the best known opportunity for some kind of multifamily development in the future, which would give us the opportunity to create affordable units. I'm now at the bottom of page 41 of the packet. Response number 3 is to describe incentives that the village can use to create more affordable housing. And most of these incentives were in the existing plans that we have, reducing some of our connection rates, use of TIF financing were available. New items were to make use of fees deposited into the Affordable Housing Assistance Fund, which we can set up and fund with any payments in lieu that we choose to accept on new development. So we included that in there. Response 4, this was one of the new components of the plan that we were required to add to the plan, which is a description of housing market conditions, infrastructure limitations, local government ordinances, including zoning and land use ordinances that constrain our ability to create and preserve affordable housing. And this response is taken a little bit from the earlier plans. It also relies heavily on the village's comprehensive plan to really paint a picture of some of the issues that we have with our woodland protection ordinance, with the lack of infrastructure that we have for more intense use in some of the municipal areas. We don't have Lake Michigan water. The presence of floodplains and wetlands, all of the factors that we find constrain development in our existing residential areas. The response 5, strategies to mitigate our constraints. The best we could come up with was to describe the recent efforts that we've made in developing the Plan Development Overlay District, and to be able to apply that to the office campus properties, and adopting an affordable housing ordinance, which are, you know, had we not had the plan deadline, we would have been doing those things anyway, but it's good that we did them in advance of updating the plan. When it comes to response 6, we suggested making a change. The plan in 2005 suggested the goal should be that 15% of new development within the village would be defined as affordable. To go back 20 years and explain exactly how we got to that standard, I think at the time it just seemed to us to be the only hanging fruit. I wouldn't call it low-hanging fruit, but it was the only thing that even seemed to make sense to the village at the time. Our experience with it, though, is that it's confusing because our affordable housing ordinance that we just recently passed sets a goal of 10% in line with the state law. This plan is an aspirational goal, and 15% of new development could be one way to get to the 10% goal. The other goals that are available, one of them was to simply acknowledge that you may not get there, but to try and achieve a 5% increase in the overall percentage of affordable housing within the jurisdiction. Since we're at 1.5%, that would mean getting up to 6.5% at some point in time. So our suggestion was that the village should select goal B going forward. And finally, one of the new components is response 7 is the timeline for making progress. There's now a requirement that I think every 4 years we report back to IDA, the Illinois Housing Development Authority, on what we're doing. I'm sort of suggesting we take credit for what we've just done, which is to draft and study exhaustively and adopt the Plan Development Overlay Ordinance and the Affordable Housing Ordinance. And then going forward, we'll have this plan, and then eventually we'll take an ordinance to create the Affordable Housing Assistance Fund. I think as we see some new development proposals coming forward, we'll want to probably get that in place. And then we'll continue with our efforts to see if redevelopment of some of the other properties that we think may occur will give us the opportunity to provide affordable housing. So that's the maps, the exhibits. Exhibit 1 is an update of the undeveloped lots in the village. This is on page 46. Not much has changed. Some of the lots from 2005 have since been built on. If you look up at the top of the map, the Duffy Lane properties at 2930 and 2950, that's the Chudy subdivision, which has been approved and which will result in 3 lots. My guess is those will be market rate homes. There's a couple of other scattered lots, some of which I have even forgotten about. I don't know how they even continue to be, but they are. A couple on Deerfield Road, which have probably been there for 30 years. There's one near the, off of Juneberry, or Thorn Meadow, I should say, which has been a challenge to develop. I think we have a proposal for 490 Thorn Meadow that's been kicking around, but very difficult to develop, very narrow. So this gives anyone an idea of sort of where the undeveloped lots are. The land use plan, which is Exhibit 2, is just one easy way of identifying the mixed use possibility over on Milwaukee Avenue, and the office campus properties are highlighted. And the last exhibit is an updated exhibit of village-owned property. Most of these are slivers, easement parcels, outlots that around Thorngate. The only significant ones, and the board knows them well, the Woodland Preserve just next to the police station, the Kiani parcels, which effectively is a preserve at this point, the Riverwork property, which is the wildlife preserve, and then you see what's left, outlots and so forth. So if any, so I know it's a lot to digest, but if anyone has suggestions or questions and wants to forward them maybe to Steve, and then I can kind of collate them and get back with any revisions. But I think it would be worthwhile to decide on when we could have a public hearing. It's just at the board level that the state law now requires that we hold before we adopt this amendment.
Are there any questions for council at this point? Okay, thank you very much. Again, if you have comments or questions, please forward them on to Steve so that we can address those prior to the public meeting or maybe at the public meeting.
I mean, if we can, if there's any concern that, I say, oh, I really should change something, and then I could send a revision out in advance of the hearing, that might be useful if someone has suggestions. I think we just need to publish before we have the hearing.
Okay, yeah, and that most likely date would be the 20th.
Okay.
Okay. Next, if there are no further issues today, okay. Next on the new business list is resolution approving the 2025 revisions to the personnel manual.
I'll try and be shorter on
Those
this one.
closely.
I'll
Yes.
try and be shorter on this one.
Yeah.
As the memo in the packet underscores, we get advice from the law firm which is counsel to our insurance carrier, and periodically they send out memos and advice on here's laws that have changed, here's things that you should change. I actually sent our current personnel manual to this to the law firm and asked that they review it and give me a feedback. And they gave me the comments that you see here. Most of the provisions I've adapted from suggestions that they gave me. The notes in the right-hand column, I hope they were legible. I can't quite tell from this, but were they? Oh, I guess you can tap on them. It sort of gives the explanation of why we're making these changes. And so our council recommends that we adopt these changes. And I think I've highlighted most of them or discussed them, so I won't go through them all.
Trustee Hollander, please.
On page 81.
Of the personnel manual or the
Yes.
packet?
Or no, of our
Packet.
board packet. And it's got the 3 elected officials' use of social media.
Oh, okay. Wait.
And I'll read it. It's one sentence that I have my question on.
It's page
Well, it's on page 81.
81 of the manual
just
itself.
above
It's
714.
137 of the packet.
It says elected officials should not engage with other members of their governing body in interactive discussions on matters of public policy when using private social media. I've always been a little bit confused. It was my understanding that any 2 trustees could engage in discussions of any issue, whether they were before the board or not before the board, but it was limited to 2.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
But this says you can't do it with anyone. And so
Should say, should not engage with other members in a way that would violate the Open Meetings Act.
okay, because you can have this, I mean, I can have a discussion with another trustee about a matter that's before us as much as I want and in any form.
Yes.
Okay. So that might need to be clarified since we tend to run across that frequently.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Henry, where are you in
Trustee
the packet?
Dickon?
It's on
This would
page
be
81.
Page 137 of the packet.
Oh, well, all right, okay.
And-
Right, 137 of the packet. Sorry. It's 81 on
It's
your.
meant to say that 2 trustees really shouldn't engage on Facebook, or something like that, so that everybody can see it, or?
No,
I don't know.
it really, I think, well, I think what you're talking about, private email conversations between trustees, between 2 trustees is perfectly fine. So why don't I just make an adjustment to that?
Oh, Trustee Dickon, please.
I actually wanted to clarify this since I did a ton of reading on the subject matter. So what this is referring to is if at some point in time you end up on a social media page where you may not even realize that another trustee or another elected official of the village is also a member in a residential format, not necessarily representing the board, you are running a risk of creating a quorum if you engage in discussion. So this is what it's saying. So this is warning you to be mindful of not accidentally creating a quorum and stating your opinions publicly on social media. So I actually think this should remain, but perhaps deserves a clarification.
It's not emails we're targeting here.
Right, yeah.
Any other questions or comments at this point? Did that answer your concern, Trustee Hollander? Did
Yes.
Trustee Dickon answer? Okay,
Yeah,
good.
just so that it clarifies for us, for the trustees, that they can communicate with other trustees one-on-one to discuss anything they wish to discuss.
I can bring this back
Okay,
at the next
yeah.
meeting if you want.
I'm sorry, say
I can bring this back at the next meeting. If you want, just to show this one change.
Okay, we can bring it back, or we can,
The sense of it is that I would make it clear that the use of emails between two trustees is not a problem under the Open Meetings Act and is not intended to be prohibited by this. But maybe you'd prefer to see the language.
Or
That's fine.
with that
Yeah.
one revision, you would
Yes.
approve? Okay.
Yes.
Trustee Clayton, did you have something?
No, I was just going to say, I thought we might be able to approve it now.
Okay.
Yeah.
With that change.
All right, do I have a motion for approval of the resolution including
So-
that edit?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Dickon?
Aye.
Trustee Eastman?
Aye.
Trustee Hollander?
Aye.
Trustee Smith?
Aye.
Trustee Clayton?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next is approval of recurring expenses related to the low-pressure sanitary system. Director Witt, will you please lead us through this?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. So as you know, the maintenance and repair of the village's low-pressure sanitary system is an ongoing process. Never been a time in my time here that more than a week or two go by and there's a repairs need to be done. Some of the repairs are well within $1,000 or less. However, we have situations, and this seems to always occur on off hours, emergency hours, where repairs that actually require the replacement of a pump need to occur, and the costs on some of those have averaged somewhere between $10,000 and $17,000. Within the first 4 months of the year, we've seen 7 cases that have been over the $10,000 limit. So what Director Vasquez and I are asking tonight would be that the board consider giving us standing approval up to an amount of $15,000 to handle the emergency cases where the residents have their grinder pump systems fail and they're in immediate need of repairs. And what we're trying to avoid is a needless delay in trying to get to the board for approval of those amounts before we actually approve expenditure with the contractor. That's all that we're looking for here tonight.
Is there discussion on, may I have a motion for approval, please?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion, please. Questions, comments? Roll call.
Trustee Eastman?
Aye.
Trustee Hollander?
Aye.
Trustee Smith?
Aye.
Trustee Clayton?
Aye.
Trustee Dickon?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Old business. First on the list is approval of GHA rates for services for the year ending December 31, 2015. Director Witt, please.
Certainly. So on behalf of the board, based on discussion at the last meeting, I brought back to Carissa Smith, who is the village engineer representing GHA, expressed the concerns that the village board had with the amount of the increase, particularly in context of Trustee Smith's comment with regard to how many times the CPI those numbers have actually raised, not mentioning names, but just mentioning a concept. And I asked them for a written explanation of, what those reasons were. The letter that I did get in response dated April 10th is included within the packet. They seem to express the increases in healthcare costs, the issue with trying to maintain adequate and qualified personnel, and also to be able to attract them based on salary ranges that they can offer. So in essence, they're holding to the numbers that they presented at the last board meeting, and I have to leave it to you for discussion.
Would you like to discuss this before I ask for a motion? May I have a motion for approval of GAWALT rates for services for the year ending December 31, 2025?
So moved.
I'll second that.
Discussion, please. Roll call.
Trustee Hollander?
Aye.
Trustee Smith?
Nay.
Trustee Clayton?
Aye.
Trustee Dickin?
Aye.
Trustee Eastman?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next item of old business is the approval of an ordinance amending requirements for a liquor license application in the Village of Riverwoods. This would be the second reading and approval. May I have a motion for second reading and approval, please?
So moved.
There's a second.
Second.
Discussion, please. I think our village attorney might note some of the changes that are being made.
Really? Do we have the Class M municipal license in the last draft? I guess that's the change.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. The village has the authority to allow the sale of alcoholic beverages at the village hall. We had an ordinance to that effect since a long time ago, 2000 or something. But we never had, since then, an actual third party or caterer come in to want to sell alcohol. I think most of the instances that I can remember have just been simple wine and cheese and social gatherings where it really is the village was there. But we have a request from the RA to make use of the village hall, in which in order for them to conduct the event they'd like to conduct, they need to bring in a third-party caterer to dispense the alcohol. For that purpose, we felt that having a designated license where the applicant, that is the caterer, would then be bound by all of the provisions in our code with respect to that, having a trained server, having insurance, naming the village, all those things are sort of already spelled out, and it makes it a little bit easier to deal with someone that way than create something out of a whole cloth. So we added the new category of license, which basically would be probably a one-day license. It'd be something where we'd specify in issuing it to the caterer that you're authorized to sell from, whatever it is, 6 to 9 p.m. at the village hall. You must, confine yourself to whatever area. I mean, all of the things that we'll have to talk about with the chief about and sort of just establish. But that's the reason for the change. I'm sorry, I forgot we'd done that.
I think it should be noted that the village hall use policy also comes into play here, which means that the use of village hall for resident-sponsored resident events, community events. This is not leaning toward opening village hall for weddings and parties and so on. It still has to comply with the village hall use policy. Because I know that might be an item that some of us remember well from the earlier days. Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Smith?
Aye.
Trustee Clayton?
Aye.
Trustee Dickin?
Aye.
Trustee Eastman?
Aye.
Trustee Hollander?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next item is board comments. Anybody have anything to address the board on? Trustee Dickin, please.
I have been asked to be the RRA's ambassador tonight with a quick reminder announcement regarding the upcoming Arts in Riverwoods event. It's taking place May 2nd through 4th. On Friday, May 2nd is the VIP preview night with first dibs on amazing art. It includes a fantastic grazing table, delicious desserts with 2 drink tickets. The RRA members will get discounted tickets. And on Saturday, May 3rd and 4th, the event is open to the public and it is free. And I've been asked to encourage all board members and residents to participate in this event.
Arts in Riverwoods is back.
Invite your friends, neighbors, help spread the word.
Yes. Any other board comments? Trustee Clayton, please.
As this is the last meeting, full meeting for Trustee Dickin and Trustee Hollander, I'd just like to say that it's been a privilege to serve on the board with you.
Thank you.
Agreed. Agreed. Thank you very much. We'll have a cake. You got to have a cake, right?
And we'll sell some beer
Cake's
too.
got to be
I started with being involved either at Deerfield government municipality board there, and here it's been 35 years, and it's long enough.
When did your term start on the board? Do you
When I
remember?
started, I started here actually for the first time with Sherry on something called the Fence Committee to determine how
Deer
we're going
Fence
to do
Committee, the Deer Fence Committee, yes,
Right,
we did.
which was
Yes,
way
we did.
back in the, I don't know,
I've got,
90s, 80s, 100s, 2000s.
it was in the 2000s,
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. That was an event, wasn't it? And notice how many we have, yeah. Anybody else? Okay. Moving on, no reason to go into executive session. The established date and time for the next meeting will be our regular meeting on Tuesday, May 6th at 7:30. There will be cake. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All opposed? You got to have a cake. We'll have a cake. No, because we're not involving a third party. If we bring liquor, it's just, if you want to get,